everybody.
Hi.
Good evening. It's like military time, 2000 on the East Coast of the United States. Time to get started. Welcome to the monthly connection. July already. Feels like it here anyway. Here is Lebanon, Pennsylvania. So not only do I have a huge thank you as always to Bev and Lynette for the pregame show and for all the effort that took to help you all get here tonight. I have a big thank you to two women in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. One is Marie, who responded to my post on Facebook. Does anybody know anybody near Hershey, Pennsylvania? I need a favor. And I didn't say why. I needed somebody's house with good internet because we are traveling and I do not trust hotel or campground or boat internet. So this month we are in Hershey this week and Lebanon is about half an hour away. Marie answered up and she said, I don't have good internet, but maybe I can find you somewhere. And her friend Robin said, we can do that. So I'm in Robin's house. She's sitting here across the room, sitting in tonight. And I tell you what, I walked in this place and went, because she's a craniosacral therapist. And this is her treatment room. You walk in, you can just feel the energy. And there's a whole shelf of essential oils over there. So I know a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Way better than being in a hotel room or whatever. So I just love how I trust this community. They trust me and I can reach out to people who are allegedly strangers, but at the soul level, there are no strangers, are there? I had somebody once say to me, you just go in strangers' houses? And I said, look, if they're part of our community, we have nothing to worry about. And that's what I love about these events. It's a sense of community. I love how Bev and Lynette are welcoming all of you as you come in live. If you're listening to us recorded, you're still part of the community. You still feel the energy. We create a field of energy here every month. It just keeps growing with the power of our love that we contribute to these events. I put in an email that I sent out. Are you feeling disconnected? Wow. All of us are just going through these ups and downs. The news is just full of ups and downs and life is tough. We knew that coming here as souls, but it's hard not to get caught up in it until you learn the truths that you are also a soul. So that's one thing we're going to keep talking about this evening. I was so out of sorts most of today. Didn't know why. Forgot my very own lesson to stop and ask my guides why. When I finally asked them why, they told me it was because of this video I watched last night about a public speaker who was demeaning mediums. I watched it just to see what she would say, and she said so many untruths as official policy, as statements, and I wrote notes, and next month's monthly connection, I'm going to address them. And if you read the Daily Way today, you'd see that their message was beautiful. They said, watch the difference in words between state your case or make your case and share information. The ego, the human thinks, I got to set it right. I got to state my case. But next month, I'm going to share information with you with evidence to contradict, counteract the information that was put out by this other speaker. And then we all just let the heart be the test. But that really had me knocked off balance all day. The guides showed me it was the video that did it to you. So what do you do when you're out of sorts all day? The 10-minute transformation. I listened to my very own recording. It's free on my gifts page. If you're not familiar with it, I said to Ty, honey, I need 12 minutes. I'll be back. I got to go clear my chakras. And it was just amazing, everybody. If you haven't tried it, if you don't notice when you're out of sorts and take control yourself of your own energy system, you're missing out. It's just like flipping a switch and I'm back, you know. The soul is always here, but the human gunk gets in the way. So just know that you don't have to suffer. We have a lot of serious things going on right now. I'm just going to put it right out there. I know that in a group this size, all of you know somebody that could use our prayers. We're going to be doing a healing session later this evening, and Sanaya will join us. I'll do some channeling there. But one very dear member of this group who's been with us from the very start, who was with our dear Brenda when she took her last breath, is Raven Valencia. And she's really struggling this evening. She's in ICU and could use all of our prayers. Okay, I know I don't usually single people out, But why do we have a community if not to hold that sacred space? So we ask for the greatest and highest good on her behalf. And then we also have somebody reached out to me today, and she said that she and her husband and child were at the 4th of July parade in Highland Park, Illinois, and when a shooting took place that's made headlines here in the US. And they asked our prayers for their whole community. And we pray for everybody involved in that, even the shooter and their family, because clearly these things don't happen unless we're so blinded to the fact that we're a soul that we hurt other people. So this is what this evening's about, isn't it? Reminding us that we are souls who are playing human roles. When we can keep that in the forefront of our mind, it completely changes the way we see this world and the way we come into this world. So what we're going to do this evening, I'm going to start with evidence of this greater reality, evidence that you are souls, that the souls of your loved ones who have passed are still right here, because all souls are eternally connected. Can't get rid of them. And after I give that evidence, we celebrate the awesomeness of being able to connect this way. Yes, I know exactly what this person said in the video last night, that it doesn't happen. Well, we'll share information that shows that it does, that connection. And then lots of teaching from the guides in the last month. And that's why we start with the evidence first, so that we show you right up front. The teaching is valid because this greater reality is real. We start, oh, yes. Oh, and my guides, Sanaya, are here. They'll keep me on track throughout the evening and interrupt me and help me answer questions. I'll stop every so often and take some questions that you submit, and Sanaya will help me answer those. We will do that healing session that I talked about for every one of us here and for our loved ones, anybody that needs healing. And then Sanaya will come in, and then we'll do a little more teaching right up till the 2-hour point. So it should be just another wonderful high energy evening. By the high energy, I mean, I'm a little, excited always, but also it's just the love that you feel. What is love? Lack of separation. When you really love someone, you feel totally connected. That's at the human level. At the soul level, you cannot not be connected. This total oneness, unity, light beings, all merging and flowing together. That's love, that total connection. And because this group is so much more aware of that than your normal human population, you can't help but feel it here. You feel it? Well, let's tune into that right now. Just start with an invocation to allow us to all get centered as one beautiful, loving group, one community here. So join me and just close your eyes for a minute, just to shut out the external world and everything around you. And let's visualize a shaft of white light coming down from above and grounding you into the center of the earth, because you're both physical and non-physical at the same time. Take in a nice, relaxing breath, pull it into the heart area, get centered in the heart with your awareness. Exhale anything that doesn't serve you right now. Any challenges that you're going through, set them aside and just be for a moment. Just rest in being. And now bring to mind something or someone you're super grateful for at this moment. There's always something. That just turns up your light just by going there. Now turn that light up even brighter and send it out to everyone in this community. Again, whether you're with us live or watching later, you are part of this field. And now in awareness, we've created a little bit of boundaries of that field so that we build it even stronger. May each one of us here tonight hear exactly what we need to hear. May what's most important for us on our path tonight snag our attention, and may we pay attention to it and find healing from the insights that come from listening. May our presence here bring healing to others as well, as we send out gratitude to our guides, the angels that protect us, and each one of us for being part of this journey together. And so it is. All right. So interesting. I was raised with no religion. And when I first started down this path, I would go speak at unity churches and centers for spiritual living, and they would ask me to say the prayer. And I'd say, no, I don't do that, because I just never prayed. I was never used to praying. And now I don't even like to use the word prayer. I like invocation. It's affirmations, but it just flows beautifully now because it comes from the heart. When anything we do when it comes from the heart is just just feels so much better and it's easier. All righty, so let me start with some of the evidential stories. Just like always, look at this. Over the last month, this is what Spirit has given me. Never fail. For 4 years, 2 hours worth of material. It's stunning. Set the intention, Spirit provides. So I had a reading last month. On the screen came 2 women, a mother and a daughter. For those of you who are mediums or practicing to be mediums, it's always interesting to be aware of our assumptions. The human side of us jumps right away, and I see a mother and a daughter, and the assumption I hear myself making is, do they have a child across the veil? But, you know, mom has a child and it's the daughter's sister, you know, or brother, or could it be a father? You know, you start to guess, and that's the last thing we want to do. And this is the beauty of the more you do readings, the more you come to totally trust Spirit. And you just say, I don't even want to know. Let's let Spirit show us. So the mom and the daughter didn't tell me who they wanted to hear from. We just started the reading, and I expected, though, to get pulled to the side in my system for a child, and my head went whoosh right over here. And that in my system is where I feel a father. And now this could be confusing. Whose father is it? Is it the older woman or the younger woman? So what do? Ask him. Rule number whatever is engage the Spirit. You're not just reading data, they're right here. So I said, okay, I know you're a father. Whose father are you? And he said, the younger one. And I said, so you're her husband? He said, that's right. And we were off and running because that's exactly who they wanted to hear from. The woman's husband, the daughter's dad. So cool. I hope that many of you who are working as mediums or studying to be mediums get to the point where it's just joyous and joyful to see that the systems work, the spirits will work with you. They want more than anything for their loved ones here to know this is real, I'm still here. So in this case, once we identified who we had, and sometimes we don't identify it till a little bit into the reading, but right off the bat, we knew who we had. This husband held out flowers for his wife, and clear as day, I said, he's handing you a bouquet of daffodils. I can't remember, the guides say yes. She starts crying right off the bat. That's a good start. When they're happy tears, it turns out, come to find out, their very first date. He found a bunch of daffodils in a field, cut them for her, probably not the most legal thing to do, and gave them to her. And from then on, daffodils were their thing. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, you're in the spirit world and you want to let your loved one know, I'm still here. This is me. This guy chose the number one thing right off the bat. And you're not going to find that on Google or the internet or anywhere. I love when they give me things like that. So let's see. I always like to get from them in spirit as evidence, how did you pass? I know it's a fault of mine as a medium that I obsess about it if I don't get it, because it's such a good way for me to truly trust the connection. If you're working as a medium, watch when you obsess about things, because it does get in the way. But right off the bat, he showed me that he passed from cancer, and that was accurate. So I knew I could feel him, correctly got his personality. And then just to show this is not reading data, he was very verbal. I said, your husband just said, word for word, I never smoked a cigarette in my life. And they both just got so excited and they said, absolutely. That was one of the things he was so proud about. So when they can talk like that, it's really wonderful. So then a grandfather came in and he showed me that he used to work at a gas station. How's that for specific? I mean, it's just beautiful. And then he used the phrase, got a tiger by the tail. I think that's the phrase for the old Esso gas stations here in the US. So I said, this is the phrase he's given me. Was it an Esso station? And Mom said, I don't remember what kind of gas station it was, but he told his son about meeting me. When you date that woman, boy, you've got a tiger by the tail. So it really had nothing to do with the gas station. It was that you've got a woman you got to watch out for there with that one. So that was very cool. A specific memory from that grandfather. Now this one really got me. I normally don't see the spirits' faces. I can't describe them, but we're getting there. Clearly we're getting there, because in this case, I said to the woman, your husband had really bushy eyebrows. I can see those eyebrows. And he just said, I told her she could have some of my eyebrows. Now, what a strange thing to hear. Mom and daughter were cracking up, because not only did dad have bushy eyebrows, mom used to have to cut them for her husband. And he literally said, yours are getting kind of thin. You want some of mine? I mean, that's specific. So if you doubt that your loved ones are still around, I hope that this will really help you to know how real this is. So let's see. And the best part at the very end of the reading was both of them just so happy to have made that reunion with husband, dad. And the mom said, everything he's saying are things I've worried about him. Now, see, what I gave you were all the gold nuggets of evidence that he's here. But in between all that evidence were the very personal messages that he wanted to tell her. And one of them, of course, is, I'm fine. But there were many more. So to have mom at the end say, that's all the things I've worried about him since he passed, shows you they know what you're thinking. They know what you need to hear. And our job as a medium is to make sure we accurately deliver their messages. And the evidence gives credence to the messages. That's why it's so important to get that evidence. So beautiful. Let's see. Oh, this is a very recent reading. Not a whole lot of evidence specific that I'm going to give you, but the importance of it is that this woman had been on my waiting list for about 4 years. Her husband came through very clearly. It was beautiful. I remember saying to her, boy, if your husband wasn't an engineer, he should have been one, because he really has that air about him. And she laughed. She said he was a mechanical engineer. At the end of the session, she said it was a very evidential reading. Turns out she is very left brain. My client has a PhD in science and a law degree, and she needed that evidence, but she was very open to it. And what was beautiful was, she said when she signed up for the reading 4 years ago, she was kind of on the spiritual path, had a community around her, and had gotten away from it. But hopefully this reading rekindled it. And she said she has nobody to talk about these things with. So I invited her to the session tonight. I said, here's your community. Right? And we're going to come up with ways to help you all interact more in the future. I haven't even talked to my team about this, but I have some ideas that Spirit's been giving me about how to allow those of you who don't feel that sense of community to be able to interact with each other. And won't that be great? But I have a feeling that woman is here tonight. And I know there are many of you in the same situation. You don't have anybody to talk about these things with, but talk soul to soul with your guides and your loved ones across the veil all the time. They hear you. I was just thinking yesterday about a phrase I put on Facebook once. I said, you know, how many of you out there are aliens? And people probably thought I was going over the deep end, right? Talking about extraterrestrials, but I wasn't. I said, it's those of you who feel you are in this world, but not of it. Once I explained that's my definition of an alien, man, we had all these people that came on Facebook and said, I am. And so I started this little phrase, aliens unite, you know, so here we are, united. You're not alone, trust me. I think there are a lot of more people out there who would love to talk about these things, but they're worried about what other people will think. But once you start talking about it, you'd be surprised how open people are. So let's see. Oh, just a really cool moment in a reading last week, where some of the main pieces of evidence that really show your client that that's their loved one is, of course, how they passed, like I said, to accurately determine the relationship, which we've been talking about. And then what kind of work did they do? Those in the spirit, if you ask them to give that to you every time, they will. You don't even have to ask. But in this case of this particular reading, I realized the man hadn't shown me what work he did. And I was just curious. It wasn't a test. It's not a check in the block. I'm engaging him. We're involved in a conversation. Can you feel the difference there? And I said to him silently, what kind of work did you do? I've said this before. The reason I say it silently is so that the client doesn't hear the question and immediately think what kind of work dad did or whoever it is, because then the medium can pick that up telepathically from the client, and that's not ethical. We want to get it from the spirit. So silently, what kind of work did you do? And I turned to my client, I said, your dad's trying to show me his work, and he's taken this thing that looks like a hammer and he's clanging it down on what looks like an anvil, and I hear metal clanking. And the guy very nonchalantly says, oh yeah, he worked at a metal stamping company. And my jaw just drops open. It's just so cool how clever those in spirit are. That's not reading data, right? That's somebody showing me, because to hear the term metal stamper, I wouldn't even realize that was a job. But when you hear it, you can figure out what it is. Spirit is clever. They know what to do to get the information across. Let's see. But I screwed up later in that very same reading. I realized that that same man had not shown me how he passed. And so I got a couple pieces. I felt short of breath myself, so I knew there was some lung issue. I reported that. I saw snapping fingers. That's in my system, a symbol meaning sudden passing. I correctly discerned from him that the loved one didn't get to say goodbye, but I wasn't sensing how he passed. And then I saw the spirit make a spiraling motion. In my system, I realized that has two different meanings. 2 or 3 times I've had people who drowned. That was how they died, and they used that symbol. I even asked for that to be a symbol for me for drowning, but I see the very same symbol when somebody spiraled down mentally or emotionally. So I reported in this reading, your father is showing me spiraling down. It wasn't a father. I don't remember the relationship. Spiraling down, a spiral going down. And I explained that often means emotionally or mentally, and they shook their head. Finally, later, near the end of the reading, I said, because I was obsessing about it, how did he pass? And the client said, he drowned. I was upset with myself because here are the spirits cooperating with me, using the symbol that I asked for, and I didn't trust. Why didn't I trust? Because I didn't see any water, didn't sense water. I felt no fear whatsoever, didn't have any emotions that went with what I assume a drowning might be like. And the spirit's showing me there was no fear. They were a soul. They were aware of it was their transition. This was the way the soul chose to pass. And I didn't trust. So we learn from these moments when we don't trust. And I talked to my guides afterwards and said, I need different symbols here, or at the very least, I'll say fully, it could be either this or that. So I hope that you learn from my mistakes, and we always learn from them anyway, and keep moving on. Let's see. Let's take a couple questions before I launch into another long one with evidence. Bev is going to field some questions that you all put in the question box.
Okay, here's one from Jody. Does time have any impact on our ability to connect with a loved one? For example, my mother who passed when I was a young child 50 years ago, would it be harder for me to connect with her than someone who just passed maybe last year?
The guides are saying right now that time is really not a factor, that it's more the frequency of the spirit, how much they've learned to communicate, if they're recently passed, and if they've been gone a long time, how important is it to your soul's path and their soul's path. So it's going to differ for every individual. I just brought through a woman who passed just a month ago, did that 2 days ago in a reading. And I have brought through great-great-grandfathers, but that's unusual because by that time we don't have the interaction and the memories and the emotion with people who are multiple generations back. But a parent who passed 50 years ago, if that serves your growth, if they have an apology to make or a thank you to give, they're going to show up. Time to them is irrelevant. Remember that. One more,
Thank
please.
you. Margaret says, I ask Archangel Michael every day to travel with me, but I've heard that archangels do not stay with you like that, but they come and go. Is this true?
Wow, got to ask the team that one. Okay, there's the lip twitch. They're showing me this. That's come and go is the answer I get to that. They say that Michael, just like other masters, can be with large groups and many individuals at the same time. And this coming and going, they stay as long as they're needed. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on, Bev. Okay, we'll do more and more just Q&As throughout the evening here. All right. So I did tell you last month, if you attended last month's monthly connection, that I would share with you how the place from which I broadcast last month's monthly connection in New Bern, North Carolina, was a total setup by spirit. Just like this month, I knew I'd be on the road and I put on Facebook, I need a place, I need a favor from somebody in New Bern, North Carolina. It's a pretty small town. I didn't hear anything. Like a whole week went by and I thought, okay, well, it's kind of understandable. I don't have people in every town in America, you know, but I thought maybe somebody within half an hour, nothing. So I said, Ty, we have a problem here. He said, all right, I'll change our campground reservation to Virginia Beach. Surely you'll have somebody in Virginia Beach. So he changed the reservation right as soon as he canceled the reservation in New Bern and made a new one. Bev says, Suzanne, I just heard from somebody in New Bern. Just like that. So I reached out to, I picked up the phone because they gave their phone number, called the person in New Bern. It was perfect, perfect. And so I said, Ty, see if you can get the reservation back. He never complains. He switched it back and we went. And if you were with us last month, I was at the house of Patty and Cindy in New Bern. They are two moms who are two of the most amazing women I've ever seen. They have 6 children. I better look at my notes because I don't want to screw this up. Yeah. 3 of their 6 children are special needs children. I wish I could ask them. I may get this wrong. I believe 5 of the 6 are biological children through in vitro fertilization. They're both moms of all these kids, but one of them carried them. But 3 of them special needs kids. Yeah. And when I heard right away that they had a son who passed, I knew it was a setup and I knew I was supposed to do a reading for them. So I said, I gratefully accept your offer to use your house and your internet, and I'd like to give you a reading in exchange for that. And I'd like to do it in the morning before the event so that I'm nice and fresh, not the morning after when I might be a little drained. So I showed up at their house and there are pictures of all 6 kids on the wall. And I looked at them and I said, I'm about to do a reading and I know I'm going to bring through one of the children on this wall, 5 boys and 1 girl. And I know it's a son. And I said, but I just want you to know, I'm trusting that he comes through and I don't know which one it was. And I'm not going to make any assumption that it's one with special needs. So notice how it's really helpful to go through, again, what assumptions you might be making and just start with a blank slate and totally trust spirit. Well, oh my goodness, their little boy, talk about a setup. He came through so clearly. I said, he's showing me 9 years old. He was 9 years old when he passed. I can't see his picture because it's behind me as I sat on the couch and both moms sitting off to the side. It was truly stunning for me to merge with the soul of this young boy who was very, very developmentally disabled. I felt uncoordinated. I felt like I couldn't walk and that I didn't really have the use of my arms. And it's challenging to say that when you're not really in the flow yet. It was just as I started and moms just started crying because, yeah, that was him. And now it's a point of let's not make any assumptions about anything. right? Everything that comes through has got to come from him. Let's not build on the fact, well, then he was in a wheelchair. No, he showed me himself in a wheelchair. And I said, you know, he's making this motion here. And I believe in doing that, it's to show me he was nonverbal, because he's talking to me from the spirit world, but he is giving me the knowing he was nonverbal. And they said, not only was he nonverbal, but he made that motion all the time. So it wasn't just a symbol that we'd merged so beautifully that was him. And he showed me he had neurological issues. And I said, like cerebral palsy. And they said, yes, he had cerebral palsy, among other things. And I asked him how he passed. I asked him silently, and I just suddenly got very weak. I could tell that it was sudden, and he showed me something burst in his head. What was wonderful is that they had not done an autopsy, and they were wondering what caused it. And another medium said the same thing. So really, really comforting for them to get some validation. He showed me he communicated with a specific yell and banging on the wall. And they said the wall that's right behind you, his bedroom was behind there, and he could communicate with specific yells and the way he banged on the wall. I mean, very interesting. It's challenging for those in spirit to get through to a medium, something the medium has no experience with. So that just shows what a strong communicator he is. And then it became clear why he was a very strong communicator, because suddenly this 9-year-old boy morphed into this light being in a robe, a very old soul, and communicated with me as that old soul. I was no longer him as a little boy. He and I were having a higher level conversation. And he said, I deliberately chose a body I knew would not function well to give everyone around me the opportunity to practice and learn unconditional love. And let me tell you, Cindy and Patty, we're talking unconditional love, not an easy path at all. And I know many of us who have taken on challenges just say, really, I signed up for this, but the love that this little boy gave them, oh my goodness. His name was Oliver, which I found so interesting because my dad's name was Oliver. And I said, my dad never let anybody call him Ollie, but your son is showing me you called him Ollie. And they said, absolutely. There was something else that was interesting I wanted to share with you about that. I'm sure I'll get back to it. But let me see. Oh, I know what it was. When I first walked in the house and was greeted by both of them, you know, this little, they felt a little bit like, okay, we've invited you in our house. So what is it going to be like here? And these two enormous dogs came up to check me out. I mean, big. I think one is like a Newfoundland, if you've ever seen one of those dogs, Newfoundlander, whatever it is, Newfie. And the dogs came up and they said, they're going to check you out. And they're sniffing all over me. And then they just turned around, walked over to the side and laid down. And they said, you passed the test. They said they're actually trained dogs. They're trained in sensing energy. They're trained in herding one of their children who tends to wander off. And if I had had any energy that those dogs didn't like, they would never have sat down. So I said, well, I would hope I passed that test. And we got on with the reading. So that was really pretty cool. So turns out that Ollie has a twin sister. She's now 11, and she's been going through a really rough time since her twin brother passed, as you can imagine. I can't remember the exact term that the moms told her about, called me, but it was something about the lady that talks to ghosts, and that cracked me up. Well, they said I would get to meet her when I came back that evening for the monthly connection session. So as I was walking up to the door, I said, Ollie, I know you're still around. Give me something current with your sister that I can share with her to let her know you're around. Now, I can't see him. I really don't feel him, but I just trusted. I walked in the door there's the sister. And I said, hi, I'm the lady that talks to ghosts. She was appalled that her parents told me that. It was so cute. She was like this, and she went up to one of the moms and was hanging on to her like this. I said, it's okay. I think it's funny. And by the way, your brother tells me you have a Band-Aid on. You just put a Band-Aid on in the last day. Both moms looked at me like this. She looked at me like this, and she went like this and held up a finger with a Band-Aid on it. Moms had no idea she even had the Band-Aid, but Ollie knew. And this is when it's so important to educate people. So you have an 11-year-old and you say, he's not a ghost. Your brother still exists. He's still around you. And he told me, because I asked him, tell me something going on with you. And he told me about that Band-Aid. She was so shy. You could see she was processing that. It was just beautiful, beautiful. And you have to wonder how that's going to change her grief journey, right? So Ollie kept feeding me stuff then right up until the time that the monthly connection started. I went to use the restroom in the bathroom. I'm coming out and he's showing me balloons and he's going pop, 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 pop. So I went up to his sister and I said, what's that all about? I described it. She said, I don't know, balloons. And all of a sudden one of the moms said, we know what it is. They used to blow bubbles. Ollie would blow bubbles and his sister would pop them. We even have a video of it. And they later sent me the video. Can't you see? That's exactly how he got it through. And I said, okay, he's also telling me that you just used some new special soap. And the little sister goes, like, I don't know. And then mom goes, yeah, that pink bar, the pink bar. And she goes, yeah. I mean, he was just pouring it on for his sister. I was so, so happy for her. And then right before the session started, I said, he's showing me a Hershey bar. Now, everybody likes chocolate. I know that's not it. He's telling me you guys made a special trip to Hershey Park. Now, this was 1 month ago, and it's really funny that I'm staying now tonight at the Hershey Park camping resort. But they got all excited because, yes, these moms had loaded all these kids in a van, taken the whole family with the special needs to Hershey Park. And because of Ollie in a wheelchair, they couldn't go on the rides. But the one thing they did do was visit Chocolate World, and everybody got a Hershey bar. So it's a long story, but just so beautiful. I had to share it with you. It's set up from spirit that beautiful, wise soul across the veil said, nobody else in New Bern need respond. She's going to their house. They told me a story about earlier on their path that they had bought a van, a specially fitted out van for Ollie in his wheelchair, and they couldn't stand seeing it in the driveway after he passed. It was just too painful of a reminder. So they decided to sell it, but they knew they were going to take a huge loss on it. So I believe it was Cindy was driving the van and something made her turn down this road. They were just out for a drive. So this feeling inside, and we all now know it's Ollie, made her turn this way, then turn this way and turn this way. And here's a car dealership. She felt drawn to go in and say, you know, what do you give us for this van? And she really wanted, I believe it was a Yukon, big vehicle. They had a Yukon. Out comes the salesman. He goes, well, how about this car? He holds out his arm. Cindy grabbed his arm because right on his arm is a tattoo that says Oliver. She started crying. The guy didn't know why. She explained about their son and his special needs and this van. You know, that dealership made them a deal that they did not lose any money on. 2 years later, that van is still sitting in their lot because they can't sell it. And make the money back. That's the good-heartedness of people, huh? Beautiful story. So hope that helps you all to hear that, and sending them lots and lots of love. Okay, did I cover everything there? Oh, the only thing is Cindy told me she thought it was a little crazy that Patty responded to my Facebook request to let a complete stranger come in their house. So she had learned by that point to say, Ollie, if we're really supposed to do this, have that medium Suzanne call Patty. Within 5 minutes, the phone rang and it was me. You got to love it. So I hope you can see the web, how we're all connected, how we are set up by those across the veil. Learn to trust this. Ask your loved ones for signs. Ask for current events to show everybody around you that they're still part of our lives. Beautiful. So how about a couple questions before we move on?
Okay. Here's one from Mary. Is there a finite number of souls, or are new souls created?
Absolutely no finite number. Souls are just expressions of source, which is limitless. And think of it like bubbles, like soap bubbles, right? But we don't pop and go away. It's just energy that bubbles up and just keeps flowing. There's no limit. There's no geography, no space in the non-physical world. So you can't fill it up. Okay.
Thank you. This is anonymous. Do we ever have aliens or extraterrestrials as guides?
Okay. My guide said stay away from ETs other than joking about them. Not in the way you would understand it, but there are planetary influences. Some of you would recognize Arcturians, Pleiadians, and such, but everyone is asked and encouraged to focus on your guides who are more associated with their earthly experiences. Kind of a waffling of an answer there, but it's a kind of a yes and no.
Thank you.
One more, Bev.
Okay, let's see. Doris and Frank asked, can chronic illness like MS cause challenges in connecting with our loved ones?
The guides say yes, it can, and that's due to some of the wiring. The human being, the human body is an antenna, and so it definitely can get in the way. But the guides want you to know that at the soul level, you're still a soul. Your soul is connecting with your guides at the soul level and doing its best to get insights through to your thoughts. So you may not feel you're connected, but you can't not be connected. So you're always being guided. Trust that many of the thoughts are coming from your guides. It just you may not be able to receive conscious answers to questions you deliberately ask, but you are always being guided, and that does get through because the guides know how to circumvent interruptions in the circuit, they say. Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to move on. I wanted to tell you some more incidents of the web at work, but we'll save it till next week. We've talked enough about next month. Talked enough about the web for now. Okay. Yep, we can skip that. All right. Oh, except for this one. So I felt my stepdaughter Susan so clearly as we spent our first 2 weeks on our new boat, Gratitude, this past month. And I have learned not to put her to the test, like, tell me something going on with your dad now, because I don't need to do that anymore. But I still love playing the sign game with anybody who shows up. Give me a sign so I trust this more. It's just magical to have those signs in front of us. So when I felt Susan around, I said, Susan, I know this is you, but send me a sign of, and if you follow my work enough, you know that in that moment, and I hope you will all try this, when you go, give me a sign of, whatever pops in your mind is put there by your loved one, knowing you're going to encounter what they put in your mind. So I said, give me a sign of flying duck, because flying duck is what came into my mind. And literally, as I said flying duck, I thought, flying duck? I mean, ducks do fly, and sometimes you see them flying in lines, but I thought that was unusual enough that I knew it had come from Susan. Then I just set it aside. So the next day, we pulled into a new port in our boat, and we were taking the dogs to go relieve themselves, walked down the pier, walked past some bushes, and suddenly startled to the point of shrieking by a duck that had been nesting in the bush, and literally, I scared it. It flew out in front of me, took off 2 feet in front of me. The dogs were freaking out. And I looked at Ty and I said, that Susan did that. He said, what? And I had to explain it. 3 times the same duck flew out in front of me. Can't you see? Susan saw that duck, knew we would have to walk by there with the dogs. And it's one of those, this is going to be good. But we quickly learned after that to give that space a very wide berth because I didn't want to startle the poor duck with the dogs every time. But I just thought it was very cool and a reminder to all of you that your loved ones don't mind being tested with the sign game. Okay. Let's see. So I said we would talk this evening a little bit about presence. Being on our new boat really taught me a benefit of being present. Our boat has multiple little stairs on it, the stairs up to the bridge, the stairs down to the sleeping cabin, and the stairs up to the upper deck. We had to learn to be super careful because the stairs are steep. We also had to put up a dog gate so the dogs wouldn't fall down the stairs or run up the stairs and fall overboard. So every bit of moving around this new boat required presence. Did I lock the gate so the dogs are safe? Am I slowing down instead of going full speed ahead like I always do? It was exhausting, all this movement around, but I noticed in being present, I had to stop. I had to notice every step I took. When you're in your familiar environment, our minds are constantly moving. We don't have to pay attention to the path we're taking or what we're doing. So our mind wanders to the past and all the things that we wish we had done differently, or the mind wanders to the future and the things you're worrying about. I wasn't worrying about anything. I was focused on remaining safe and keeping the dogs safe, and that required me to be present. So my challenge to you is, what if you're more present, more careful in how you just move about through your daily day? What I realized was how much more peaceful I felt in being present. Then when we got underway on the boat, we went for a 5-day shakedown cruise around the Chesapeake Bay. Grateful on Vessel of Gratitude that everything went beautifully. It was amazing to feel the angels around us. But I had forgotten how when you're navigating on a boat, just like in a sport, you have to remain present. You don't want to run aground. You don't want to run into another vessel. You have to be focused the entire time you're underway. It was exhilarating, even though we were only going a slow speed. So that's why sports figures talk about being in the flow. They feel exhilarated. The benefit of being present is you feel alive because you're not focused on the past. You're not worrying about the future. It's just a little fringe benefit I had never put into those words, and I'd like you to practice it yourself for that very purpose. Find an activity that requires total focus, but not thinking so much, right? That's tiring. So I hope you find that interesting and have fun with that. All right. How about a couple more questions, Bev?
Okay. This is from Maggie. She said, could you please speak about the term the multiverse? What exactly is that?
Oh, it's a great term. We speak in terms of the universe, and some people call God universe, but that's limiting this limitless source. We only know our universe, and that involves our planetary system and other galaxies, right? That's the universe. But Source has told many people even that is not the limit of existence at all. This is a universe, but there are multiple universes. Imagine, I can't even imagine galaxies that are light years and distances beyond our grasp away from us here in this universe, and that yet there are multiple universes. That's the multiverse. So I would say, and the guys say, yes, another term that is kind of synonymous with multiverse would be cosmos. The cosmos is all of it, and yet it's so vast we can't even understand it.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you. This is anonymous. Does our spirit or could our spirit leave the body early if death is coming shortly?
Yes, and that does happen, but we're talking early. Well, when the spirit leaves the body, that's death of the physical body, but we're talking about dissociating from it, and that happens so that there's no fear felt. And I see a symbol when I do readings, when I see charades like this, the spirit goes like this, I know they died at the scene of an incident. See it a lot with car accidents. And that's very comforting to those of us here to show us that, yes, I passed right there, but I didn't suffer because the soul just launched right out of the body, right then and there, and usually watches what's going on. All right, I'm going to move on, Bev. Okay. I want to give you all now a great example of how the spiritual path and connection with spirit can unfold. Some of you are new to this path. Some of you have been on it for years. Those of you who fall in the latter category will definitely recognize some of these things I'm going to share with you. But I got a beautiful email from a woman in the UK, a new member of our community. Her father passed unexpectedly last September. She wrote to me that it just rocked her family's world. Of course it did. But she felt this undeniable urge for confirmation that he still exists. Does that sound familiar? I'll bet 99% of you recognize that urge. It's what started me on this path. When I saw my stepdaughter Susan's body in the coffin, I just had to know that she still exists. But it wasn't a need to know. It was somehow I knew, and I had to find evidence of that. Undeniable. But you know, not everybody has that. So I feel that those of you who really resonate with that, I know it exists. I have to know. This is what's leading you to this path. If you could see your loved ones passing as the gift of catapulting you on your spiritual journey, that changes the way you look at the whole situation. Well, she went to the cemetery to visit her dad's grave and met a man in the cemetery, and they launched into a conversation about the afterlife. She says if she hadn't met that man, she might not have really started researching things. So again, what put that man right in her path? What got them started talking? Right away, she's starting to see the web, but she didn't recognize it for what it was at the time. So that conversation started her reading books. I know all of you identify with this, watching videos online, and she started meditating daily. But the really interesting thing is she didn't know what to expect from the meditation. And that is so important, to go into meditation when you're new on this path with no expectations. She says she wasn't sure what she wanted, what she expected to happen, but she found that those, for her, 15 minutes every day resulted in her feeling more peaceful about her father's passing. As I read this woman's email, I thought, this is my exact journey, right? The reading the books, the watching the videos, and not so many videos when Susan passed. We didn't have so much YouTube 16 years ago, but I started meditating daily, and it was usually about 15 to 20 minutes a day. And I wasn't seeing Susan. I did have the expectation that I would see her, and I did not right away. But it really brought me a sense of peace. So for those of you who don't have a regular practice, I just can never emphasize enough how helpful that is. She said she felt peace, she felt quiet. She really didn't experience anything else. She didn't know if she was doing it the right way, but she continued. Why? Because of that inner urge. And I know that many of you, again, identify that. She said one thing in her email to me that she couldn't understand during her meditations is sometimes she would cry, but they weren't tears of sadness. She Googled why this could be and never found a definitive answer. We'll get to that in a minute. I have people ask me that question all the time. How come sometimes when Sanai is talking, I feel like crying? All right. She says she's now been meditating daily for 7 months, has noticed subtle differences in her daily life. Let me read it to you and see how many of you identify with this. I truly feel connected to everything. nature, animals, other people, the universe in general. I've also noticed changes in the way I react to situations, handling things in a much calmer manner, and becoming empathetic. I want to help people with whatever problem is bothering them and feel whole and complete sense of love and gratitude. I know without a doubt this has come from my practice of meditation. Yes, yes, yes. This is that urge. It's the soul saying it's time. Have you suffered enough? Are you ready to find the peace that is right here? Notice where it came from. She didn't find it out in the external world. She found it through those 15 minutes of silence when she expected nothing. I hope this is really touching a chord in all of you. Okay. She said, yesterday, by chance, I happened to notice an interview that I, Suzanne, had given and was shared on Facebook. She hadn't heard of me before, but watched it and was overwhelmed to find exactly what I've been searching for. So I hope that that was a setup for her from Spirit. She said, I visited your website and was overjoyed to find the answers to many, many questions. That was on the frequently asked questions page, which is now called Big Questions, Big Answers on the new website. Same URL, SuzanneGiesemann.com, but go to Big Questions, Big Answers. She said, I had been searching for a teacher since my journey began and never found that person resonated with what I was looking for until now. She said, this afternoon, I tried out the Bless Me method of meditations, and that's my 7 steps to connecting with higher consciousness. It's free on the gifts page. She said, I asked a question during my meditation, asked for a sign from my spirit team that I would know for sure came from them. Lo and behold, after my meditation, I began to read your free download, Mastering Meditation, and one paragraph jumped out at me so much so I could do nothing except sob in sheer undeniable confirmation. The paragraph read, this is how you slow down your brain waves. This is where you experience other realities. It's also the place where one day, if you continue to set your intentions on this goal, you will experience an overwhelming fullness of love that will bring you to tears. In that moment, and hopefully many that follow, you will know this is what people everywhere are searching for, and it's been right here inside you all along. She got her answer. Why do I cry? Why do I cry? It's the soul rejoicing already because you're finally remembering who you are and that it's right here. See, she went just like I did, looking for her dad, just like I went looking for Susan, and many of you have started hoping to hear from your loved ones. You will get there. But in the meantime, look what opens up. Truth, discovery. It's just been waiting for you. And that's why we cry. That's why I learned not to put on any mascara when I meditate at first, because I would just cry and look like whoever that woman was that always had the mascara running down her face. Yeah. So she just thanked me for that and said, I hope to connect to my lost loved ones, and in time would love to pass on messages to others from their loved ones too. I have faith that as I continue my journey and my daily meditations, I will progress into making contact. I do too. And I have that same faith for all of you, because we can't not be on this journey, can we? And the more you're dedicated to that and that daily commitment to spirit and to your soul's path, it pays off. It can't be any other way. All right. So we talked about, are you feeling disconnected? It absolutely happens. The beauty of feeling disconnected is when you have had a regular practice long enough, you recognize the disconnection. In the past, feeling disconnected was the regular way of being for me, and for so many of you. I know you recognize this. But let me tell you, that first week of the 2 we spent on the boat, I would sit every day, as I do, to get my daily way from Sanaya, and I had to work it. Talk about feeling disconnected. Even though I said I was present and feeling more alive in my morning meditations, oh my goodness, it's like, I know you guys are here, but I'm not hearing you. So I had to clear the chakras. I had to take more centering breaths. I had to go through all the things that we know we can do to raise our vibration, thinking of things you're grateful for, turning up the light, all the tools in the toolbox came out. Why? Because I was in a totally new environment on this new boat. Other people's energy was still lingering around there. So you'll find the same thing when you go to a new hotel room, you move to a new house, you start a new job. Anytime you're in an environment with new energy, you will feel disconnected for a while. It's also true when somebody around you passes. You have to get used to the change in the lack of their physical energy around you, but their soul is still around you, but those energetic patterns of the body are not there. Same thing goes with taking medication. People have often asked me, does medication affect my connection? It may not. I have a dear friend who recently, about 6 weeks ago, started some new medication, and they hadn't realized that the medication was affecting them until they noticed even their meditations were off. They felt very disconnected. So if you've already established a practice of meditation, you get to know what presence feels like, what peace feels like, and how to access it. And suddenly you can't access it again. Usually you can identify why. If you can't, do like I did this morning when I was off balance and finally remembered to say, guides, show me what's going on here. This friend finally realized, oh my God, it's not really me why I'm feeling disconnected. It's that medication. And she actually weaned herself off of it and feels totally connected again. Now, some people need to be on medication. You can overcome that. You'll have a different way of being, but just maintain a regular practice and ask your guides for help. All right. Bev, questions?
Gotta hit the unmute button. Okay. Let's see, Jan asked, what is the difference between an old soul and a new soul?
Well, souls are actually pretty timeless, okay? Because they're in the realm of no time. They're light beings, but certain souls have, let me ask, I gotta ask the guys, because clearly I'm stumbling here. Let's ask. In your world, you would understand it as time that a soul bubbles up and decides to start incarnating as a human and has many lifetimes. An old soul is one who has advanced quite a bit in their human incarnations to the point that they completely remember they are a soul. It's really not a factor of time then, it's wisdom gathered. And it's a brighter light. So that's the difference. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Paula asks, if a great-grandparent didn't speak English, but they come through, how do you understand their communication?
We understand it. All of us who connect with spirit, you too, will understand them the same way you understand animals and pets who talk to you. All communication is a transference of information with a frequency. This body is an antenna. It receives that frequency, not through the brain, but through every cell in the body that transmits that frequency to the brain and then turns it into something you will understand. So whatever language you speak, the brain is going to translate that frequency into your language. So it doesn't matter what language is coming in, the language is carrying information as a frequency. Same way animals communicate. I never talked to my dog Gretchen in English until she passed, and suddenly we're speaking in full English sentences. It was really quite amusing, but very, very clear. And when people come through in readings, I can often tell that they spoke a foreign language. It's a knowing, and yet they're speaking in English. So don't worry about that. How about one more before we move on to the main topic I said I would discuss this evening?
Okay, Karen asks, do angels ever incarnate as humans?
The guides say occasionally and for short periods as it serves the greater good. Okay, all right.
Thank you.
They say that they can do much more good for us from the higher levels than in a very restrictive human body. They're acknowledging these bodies hold us back, but we take them unwillingly. All right. So I said we were going to talk this evening about what I'm terming mediumship malpractice. I also gave everybody a warning in my email. I might get on a soapbox. So I'm asking Sanaya now to not let me get too human here and not get too strident. But I do feel very strongly about this topic because it's so important to never break what I call rule number 1 in mediumship. And that is do no harm. Do no harm to your client. Don't say anything that would cause them emotional, mental, spiritual pain. Okay. So we always have to watch what's about to come out of our mouth before we say it. We don't have to share everything that comes through. You're open to all information that's in the field. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But last month in the monthly connection, we talked about a medium who traumatized a shining light mom, that's a mom who has a child across the veil, by telling her that her daughter was stuck. The medium then, after the woman told her that she had a daughter in spirit and how she passed, I can't talk about this one without getting emotional, so I have to just get very level here. The medium then suddenly went into the fetal position on the floor in the middle of the session and enacted how this woman's daughter allegedly was across the veil. A great theatrical show that truly, as you can imagine, upset this mom and told her daughter was stuck and she would get her unstuck. The main point I asked that mom after doing a reading for her myself to show her her daughter was not stuck was, what evidence did that medium give you that she was actually connecting with your daughter? And she said, none. So the mom clearly doubted the medium, but somebody plants a thought in your head, it's somebody that you trust, and that doubt is going to remain. So I offered to do a reading as a gift for her because I knew her daughter wasn't stuck. We got so much evidence from her daughter, and her daughter was so fine. And we did a little healing practice. If you were with us last month, you can go back into the archives and learn that healing technique. But the point was, this is the value of evidence. We were clearly able to show her personality, how she passed, what kind of work she did, messages that were important. And number 1, I'm not stuck. Okay. So I received a comment from someone in a webinar who said, I had a similar situation. She was traumatized during a reading with a medium. I reached out to her and offered her a reading as a gift. And I thought to myself, am I trying to prove something here? And the answer is, you darned tootin'. I'm trying to prove that the soul is fine. I'm trying to show people may get temporarily confused when they pass, but we don't get stuck. And there are all kinds of ways of helping those people who might be hanging around and not realize there's another very solid reality called the spirit world. It's solid to them. They just have to notice and go to it, but they're not stuck. Okay, watch that terminology. So I know that that mom of this other daughter is tuning in tonight to this webinar here. And we had the most beautiful reading this past month. Turns out she was told by a very reputable medium that her daughter was stuck. You ready? And that if she paid her $1,700, she would get her daughter unstuck. That's malpractice, right? I mean, we can charge for readings. That's totally ethical. That's an exchange of energy. But we won't even go into all that part. And it's just obvious. That's just in our human way of being not right, right? So I asked her, did you pay her? Because then somebody might say, well, you tuned into her daughter, but that's because the other medium unstuck her. She said, no, not one penny. And what is it she said? She just made me mad and confused. And like I said, thank God I heard you first. So she had heard me say people don't get stuck. Now, I know there are groups like at the Monroe Institute, where I'm actually teaching a class next month, that have a class in helping souls to the light. And they will tell you many stories about helping souls to the light. And some of them actually come with evidence. Somebody shared with me by email today about somebody who helped a little boy who was in a car accident, who was a little confused. And there was evidence. So I'm not saying that they don't get a little confused, but no one is stuck, okay? That's just a term that's very upsetting and not actually what's going on. The soul is always free to make choices and is trying their best to just keep us moving to nice, loving experiences. So if you are practicing mediumship, please be aware of how your terminology will affect your clients. That's 2 traumatized moms, just that we've heard of right here. But I want to tell you that we successfully connected with this woman's daughter. We were laughing. She is so sassy, that girl across the veil. Gave me such evidence about how she passed, but her personality, you just couldn't miss it. She was a very strong person. Mom is rocking back and forth and saying, 1000%, you're nailing this. This is her. She was so excited. There are goosebumps again. And let's see, you know, when they speak in full sentences, like some of the examples that I gave you earlier, this is when you know you've got this connection going. This young woman was not stuck. I want to read for you because I wrote it down from the transcript. I said, your daughter's saying that other medium's going to come face to face with me when she passes, and I'm going to give her what for, just like that. And Mom is laughing, saying, oh my God, that's her. That's her. Because it's exactly how she would have talked, and it's exactly how she was talking when we connected with her, not stuck. Evidence in abundance. She told me that she couldn't hold the job. She had a bunch of jobs. So I said to her silently, like what? She said, well, I worked in retail, and I was a cashier, and I was a server in a restaurant. And Mom's going, yes, 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 all this evidence. So she's right there with us, not in some limbo state. And then a really excellent gold nugget. Gold nuggets are those pieces of evidence from across the veil that you just can't deny. This is them. It was so clear. Her daughter took me into a grocery store parking lot and showed me some incident with her mom where this daughter in spirit had to come rescue Mom because she got into a clash with someone else. Oh my God, did they ever? The exact scenario in a grocery store. My goodness, who can deny that? So again, I was not talking to some spirit who was stuck in limbo. She was perfectly fine and told me she had never been stuck. Thank goodness Mom didn't pay that money. So we all have this inner radar, right? This inner knowing when something's bogus. But when you're grieving, you are very vulnerable, and people who are very human know that. Unfortunately, I used to believe that you couldn't connect unless you raised your consciousness, but I've learned along the way that people with pretty low consciousness somehow still have the ability to connect, because we all do. So all we can do is raise the bar, point out what's ethical, and test ourselves. Because just like that young girl across the veil said, you're going to have to face those people you bring through, right? And they're going to give you what for when you get there. Truly, there's no judgment from those across the veil. They've told us this over and over, but our souls are whole and good. And when we do acts that don't align with our soul, we don't fulfill the purpose of life, which is being an expression of this source, this beautiful, loving source that we are a part of. We're here to align with that and feel that and express that. To be a medium is one of the greatest gifts I can imagine, the healing that it brings. So those of you who are practicing it, hold yourself to the highest standards. And just do no harm. Somebody asked me to address boundaries for mediums? What if you see incest in someone's life at an early age? A father comes through and shows that. I would not say that, just in case a person didn't know about it. You know, what if you're wrong? We get things wrong sometimes. What if you're wrong? Do you have to give everything? What if dad wants to apologize for that, or the loved one wants to apologize? You can put it in terms that say your father's apologizing for some action. If you get no response from your sitter, you don't have to be specific, right? Just say he could have done a better job as a father. He wants to say that. You see how you can still represent the people across the veil and do no harm here. All right. By the way, that mom whose daughter is not stuck at all, who she knows is still with her, in that reading, there was about one thing she couldn't really identify with that came through. I said, your daughter's handing you a teddy bear. And she's like, no, I don't know about a teddy bear. I said, either she had one or you recently got one. She's like, can't identify that teddy bear. She wrote back to me a week later and said, you know, everything was spot on, but I just don't know what's with the teddy bear. Yesterday, she emailed me and she said, Suzanne, every morning I sit across the room and stare at this bear. She sent me a picture of this teddy bear. I always smile when I see it. I don't know if this is what she was talking about, but I don't doubt the amazing connection we had. Well, in the picture, you can see this big teddy bear has the word love right here on its chest. And it's just so clear. The daughter is saying, Mom, that teddy bear that you look at every day, and it makes you smile, that's my gift to you. Now you know I'm right here. That love word that's on that bear, I'm with you just like that. My love is always with you. That's no stretch. That's not making a piece of evidence fit. It's very clear. And Mom's been looking at it every day and didn't understand. So I love it. Okay, let's see. Well, hopefully that wasn't too painful to get through. It's painful to think that some people could hurt people like that, but that's why we're here, right? This evening to just raise the bar. Okay, how about a couple questions, Bev, and we'll move on.
Okay. This is anonymous, but they ask, since we have many Earth lives, why is it that a soul has to adjust in their return to the spirit world? Wouldn't they immediately know they were home?
That's a beautiful question. What happens is, what happens to us here, we identify so much with the role that we took on in this human life, we carry that energy field with us. It's not just part of the body, it's the whole field of the story. And some people cling to the story in awareness without the fullness of the soul awareness coming through, just like here. And so we have to shed that a bit, even though we're surrounded by all that love when we cross the veil. So my mom's a perfect example of this. She just did not believe in an afterlife, even though I shared all this evidence with her for the last few years of her life. And she just was not communicating at first at all. Whereas somebody like my friend Brenda, who fully understood we're all souls, she's talking within 24 hours of passing. So the soul is always awake and aware. It's a matter of us clearing out the clouds. And that's why somebody might get a little confused when they pass, right? They just are just clinging so much to the story. So it's going to be different for each person. So why don't you just, oh yeah, good one. Set the intention now that you clear away all the human conditioning necessary to be fully aware of yourself as a soul, especially when you cross the veil. And all you need to do is talk to your loved ones who have passed right now and say, hey, how are you enjoying interacting as a soul? You do realize you're a soul, right? How's it going for you there across the veil? Are you fully enjoying this realm of love where you're finding yourself? Talk to them. That's all that they learn to do in the Monroe class, is talk to people and inform them about the greater reality. We can do that right now. You don't need a class to do that. Another question. Oh, no, I'm not going to take another one, Bev, because that's the perfect segue into the next one. I mentioned that we would talk this evening I said it in the email I sent out, about a beautiful spirit miracle for a caregiver dealing with a loved one with dementia. And I believe he's listening tonight. So I hope that's true. I received an email from this gentleman who is a psychologist. I've communicated with him by email over several years. We've never met in person, but he has a blog called The 1 Minute Therapist. You can look him up. But he wrote to me, I wish to express my deepest gratitude and appreciation for the many lessons he's learned courtesy of my teaching and that of Sanaya. His wife, Julie, who he would write to me about, had dementia, and it turns out she passed. He says she slipped across the veil in February. So I haven't heard from him since February due to dementia and COVID. She had been experiencing that dementia for the past 7 years, and he's just really happy to know that she's no longer suffering from fear and confusion. She had a lot of that. He says, and this is so important to any of you caring for anyone with dementia, what made the last 2 years more bearable was my message, Sanaya's message, of being able to communicate with her while in a human physical body, spirit to spirit. And that's what the teaching is. We're all souls now. That soul inside a body that has dementia is perfectly fine, perfectly aware. So talk to the soul. It's like one of those things that, why don't we realize this once we realize who we are? He said, it made all the difference in her behavior and happiness. As soon as I began telepathically speaking to her spirit, her attitude brightened considerably. There's the goosebumps again. Her cognitive abilities were still deteriorating, and she was dementia hopping, as Alzheimer's patients do, but her outward appearance was one of peace and contentment. Seeing her happy filled my heart with joy. He said, I wrote about my experience with her in my blog, at 1minuthetherapist.com. And he gave me credit for the idea, which is lovely. But he said, I hope others are able to use the method too. And I want to read just specifically apart from that blog because it's so helpful. And not just with dementia, with other ailments. In my morning meditation, I started communicating directly with her spirit, which allowed her to decide what information worked for her and what didn't. She had, up until this point in time, been somewhat unpredictable in her behavior. Every day was an adventure. Now what? After I began speaking with her telepathically, she became happy and more content, as we discussed. He said, if she did, for whatever reason, become agitated, I could fall back into a meditative state and ask her what was happening to her. See, he really learned to get in touch with his own soul in that meditative state, to talk to her directly. At this point, she had lost the cognitive ability to articulate what she was feeling, so it was my only and best option. I would, of course, have to keep a smile on my face for her to see and a neutral body language, which would not cause her to feel threatened in any way. And this is the key. I know it made Julie's final days much more peaceful. As a caregiver, I was able to feel like I was doing everything possible to help her. Isn't that great? He said, I was also, this is huge, communicating with her guides and angels to help. I would ask them to wake me at night if she was doing anything that might be harmful to her, which they did a couple of times. Isn't that great? So if you're dealing with a child with autism, somebody who's non-communicative, talk to their soul, talk to their angels, talk to their guides to help you when you need it. She said, it is truly amazing how spirit can help if we only ask. Isn't that great? Things we don't even think about. I love the validation. Okay. I had a client just this week after receiving his email who her grandmother across the veil showed me that the grandmother's daughter, my client's mother, is here in physical form with dementia. And I was able to share all of this recent teaching with her. And she was buoyed by that because she's been going through a rough time. Okay, let's see. Okay, Bev, how about a couple questions? And we're still going to do a session with Sanaya too. So we pack a lot in here, huh?
Okay. This is from an anonymous. Can you explain the Marian apparitions, Mother Mary appearing to people on earth, such as the Our Lady of Guadalupe?
Spirit is telling me now that apparitions happen as they serve the greater good and they know those who can see them. Very interesting that just this week I brought through a woman. I said, your mother's so excited. She says she's met Mary across the veil. If we have a certain affinity with a certain being across the veil, they show up to us. And the client said, oh my God, Mary's her favorite. I love that. But that's not answering the question. I believe the guides did answer the question that it whatever serves the greater good, apparitions do happen. One more, Beth?
Let's see here. Deborah asked, do our animals have angels to help them when they are ill?
I'm asking. Ah, that's nice. They say you may call them angels. What are angels but higher level beings who are helpers? So yes. Yay. All righty. I want to get back to the fact that this video I watched last night had me off balance most of the day till I realized what was going on and had to clear my chakras. Same thing can happen when you have a bad dream, right? You may not even know you had the dream and it will affect you. So the same thing can happen when you get wrapped up in your own life's drama. It's all drama, no matter what reality it comes from a movie, from a dream, from your life. The challenges come when we identify with the drama and our story and forget we're a soul. This is the teaching I'm going to say every month if I need to, because it's where you find peace. From realizing you can shift perspectives. I'd like to remind you of a phrase that I teach in my Let Your Spirit Soar class. And that phrase that will take you to neutral, the observer state of the soul is, besides isn't that interesting, which is always perfect, is I would prefer. I would prefer that not have happened. I would prefer that this person had reacted more kindly to me. I would prefer that my husband not be acting in this way right now. That's such a nice statement because it shows you may not be able to control this. And it then just allows you to see with that observer's viewpoint. So write that one down if it feels like it might be helpful to you. But I have to tell you a funny God wink I had, sometime in the past month. Ty and I got a little snitty with each other. We're not perfect couple. We are very human at times, and we definitely got snitty. He's always very kind to me, but oh my goodness. And I remember thinking, this issue is not worth coming between us. And just that moment, Sade comes on the radio singing, "Nothing can come between us." It's like, okay, guys, the spirit world put that thought in my head to say that just then. But I have to tell you, my energy was so bad, even my dog Nellie wouldn't sit with me. Nellie loves everybody. So we really radiate energy when we're out of sorts. All of us, doesn't matter how spiritual we are, right? So what do? Again, clear your chakras, become aware of your energy, and just do whatever it takes. Sometimes it takes more than 2 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Find a nice energy healer and get an attunement. Yeah, I'm teaching at the Omega Institute this weekend. I'm so excited. Friday morning, I have an energy worker session to get a tune up. When you're in close quarters with someone, even if you love them with all your heart for 6 weeks in an RV and a boat, it's going to be very good to get a nice tune up. I love Ty so much, but energy is energy. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Speaking of energy, what do you say we do that healing session now, right? And we call on Sanaya. We have absolutely had healings taking place Miss Lynette was even sharing before we started that since these healings have taken place, she's had an ongoing issue, physical issue that has cleared up completely, and nobody else, no doctor was able to clear it up. So here's the reminder, in case some of you are new, this will be new to you. We're going to do a session where all of us send healing energy to each other and our loved ones and everybody in the world. All of us can be conduits for healing. We're not doing the healing. We are the vessel. Picture the energy of spirit coming down through you and out. You can sit with your hands out if that helps you to feel the energy flowing, but you don't have to do anything. Your intention does it. But this is the key. We're not asking for healing for ourselves. Miracles happen in these sessions when you take the focus off yourselves and only give of yourself to everyone else in the next few minutes. People have felt the most blissful states because suddenly they realize it's not all about me, you, us, right? It's about the group. So this is a group healing. And we just trust that spirit will send that energy exactly where it's needed. The beautiful part is, of course, you are going to receive healing because you are receiving it from everybody else. Just don't think about yourself. Just send love from the soul level, right? So we're going to move. I'll guide you into this, and we'll stay in this healing state, healing others for a few minutes. While we're doing that, I'm asking Sanaya to step in, and they'll just start talking after a few minutes. I have no idea what they're going to talk about, so I always get excited too to see what they'll say. I have to say something. They just reminded me, they said, get it off your chest. One of the things that bothered my human side about this video I watched last night, where the person was demeaning mediums, is they said, why is it when mediums channel, they change their voice and put on a theatrical show? My guides have explained to me they use a different voice so that I will recognize that energy, and those who need to know when the guides have stepped in will recognize the energy. They say it's totally unnecessary for my voice to change, but I don't change it. It is done. It comes out in this unusual voice, right? And I love it. It's like, to me, that's Sanaya. I hear it that way in my head. So I've cleared the air. That's why we hear Sanaya in a different voice. You'll hear that different voice in a few minutes. They'll just interrupt the healing session. The healing will continue, but I hope you enjoy whatever message they have to share with us. If you find your mind wandering while you are channeling energy to everybody else, it's a great practice in focus, being present. Just notice your thoughts and go right back to healing. You might want to just choose a phrase to repeat. Healing is taking place. Sending healing, whatever works for you to keep that focus, okay? So thank you so much in advance for this. I'll guide you through this, and I'll see you after Sanaya's finished talking, okay? All right, so let's all just shut out the external world by closing our eyes. You can open your eyes when Sanaya starts or not, that's up to you. Let's get centered now. Picture that shaft of light coming down from above and anchoring you into the center of the earth. Let's take a nice centering breath to relax, slow down your brain. Exhale longer than you're inhaling. Let's set aside your identification with your human story and your human role, even your name, and with intention, simply shift to soul awareness. Just be the soul here, now, aware, awake, a beautiful conduit for healing. We're asking now for energy from the highest possible level to flow through these vessels and out to be received by whoever needs this healing energy. We're so grateful that healing is now taking place through our efforts. And we wish to thank you this evening for your efforts in healing. And we wish to assure you that several what you would know as miracles have indeed happened as a result of this group. You may never hear of what exactly has taken place, but trust us. It is the learning that results from those of you who notice the effects of your healing that is most important. You do make a difference. And when you come together as a group, truly, this raises the vibration and these miracles can be effected. You are far more powerful than you realize. We wish to address, changing the topic for a moment here, that within this country known as the United States, there has been a bit of tumult lately with decisions made by your highest court. We are not going to address what is right or wrong, but address what happens when you get stuck in thoughts of right or wrong. You find clashes taking place. We wish to advise you that you can find peace at any moment by rising above the duality, the black and white of right and wrong, and seeing all sides of all issues. How is it that one group can think one way and one another and point fingers? It is only when you learn that there are higher viewpoints that solutions will come. Be quite careful as you point fingers and realize that is the human way. You will not hear a decision from the Supreme Being. It is all about flow. What is right in one moment in human time, at a future time, may be seen as wrong. You grow as you flow. Simply learn to see with the higher perspective, for as you learn to understand others' viewpoints, then the higher insights flow. To have understanding of the other's viewpoint allows you to see them not as an enemy, but one with whom you may find a point of compromise until you cease seeing another as an enemy and one to be fought with. You will not come to any final solutions. All is about flow. In fact, it is why you are here, to learn this dance of right and wrong versus compromise, connection, communication. We know this is not what many of you wish to hear. You wish advice that validates your unique viewpoint. Our task this evening is to give all of you, no matter where you live on this globe, the viewpoint of the soul. The soul knows only connection. Please remember this when you feel off balance by rigid beliefs. You are so very loved. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Good energy during the healing session. Interesting. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's, no, I can't shift gears that quickly. Let's see, how do I get back into gear? They said take a question. Okay, we'll take a question. A lighthearted question, Beth.
Okay. Okay. Can we ask our spirit guides for signs like we ask our loved ones for signs?
Oh my goodness, yes. And it's one of the easiest ways to get to know that they're right here with you. They love when you ask for signs because they really see what's coming down the pike for you and what they can put in your mind to ask for a sign, knowing you're going to find it. So really play the sign game with your spirit guides as often as possible. They don't mind. It's just a wonderful tool. Okay. How about one more and then we'll move on?
Another guide question. Would our guides ever scold us and say they were frustrated with us, or is that something coming from my human side?
I have my human answer. I just want to check and make sure. They say totally human. We are not your mother, they say. That's great. Okay. Yeah, don't worry about it. It's just a totally different operating system. Oh, they say wait till you meet face to face. You'll totally get it. Okay. All right. Well, I'm grateful for sessions like this because it really seeps in from the soul awareness. Just test everything in your heart. Your heart already knows. They're not going to yell at you. They're not going to judge you. That is a totally human thing. So one of the things we put out in the email about tonight was we were going to talk about, can you prepare for challenges with grace and ease? Yes. And it all comes back to this practice of seeing from the soul's perspective. I mentioned something, I don't know if it was a Facebook post somewhere earlier this week. Oh, it was in the podcast I did. By the way, my podcasts are not every Thursday like they used to be. They're on random days, about every 10 days to 2 weeks. I just had one Sunday, a Q&A session. The next one's on the 11th with energy healer Deborah King. If you want to be notified about those podcasts, please sign up for a special email about them. Go to my website under podcasts, and you'll know 2 days before each of those podcasts. But in a recent Q&A, I talked about how in the Navy and now in my life, Ty and I practice what we call what if drills. A drill is an exercise. So when Ty and I started sailing our sailboat and we were going to cross the Atlantic Ocean, which we ultimately did, we did all kinds of what if drills. And that's where you run through a scenario in your mind, every possible thing that could go wrong. And you say, well, what if one of the through hulls, the opening where water goes out of the boat from the sink, or water comes into the boat for the engine intake. What if one of those breaks and water starts flooding into the boat? What if that happens? What would we do? And you think through every action you're going to take. Well, what if we get run into by a whale? What will we do? And you walk through all that. What if my husband passes out while we're underway? It actually happened. But because we ran through it, I just handled it very calmly and it was not a big deal. So what you can learn to do, and I do this all the time, are what if drills for life. Now, there's a very, very important key here. There's a huge difference between worrying about the future and doing a very measured, present, what if drill. So I don't want you to sit here and say, what if I get hit by a car? Or what if my husband dies? Or what if this and that? And worry. That's going to the future. That's not presence. We already do enough of that, right? This is using your soul awareness to prepare yourself for things that might happen, so that if they do happen, and when certain inevitable things happen, you will respond from the soul, from a place of peace. That's what I'm recommending here. So before I started down this path, it was too scary for me to think of, I'm going to use a scary scenario. My husband dying, right? He's 14 years older than I am. It's probably likely he's going to pass before I do. But, most people don't want to talk about death. Or what if my beloved pet dies? No, we don't want to talk about it. But so then that is inevitable, right? Death is such a part of life, but we don't talk about it. But once you come to know that death is not the end, that you are a soul, that changes things. So I literally Now that I know about the afterlife, I've sat and I say, well, what if Ty does pass? What if? But I'm doing it as a conscious, lucid exercise. How would I react now, knowing what I know as a soul? I know I'm going to be completely knocked off balance, even if I prepare, but I know he'll be okay. I know I have guides who will help me. I know I have a support system. So I'm now asking my guides, if that happens, if he passes before me, help me remember all of these things. Help me bring all my tools to the forefront. Help me remember to call on you. Perhaps I won't be as knocked off balance as I think. You see how helpful that is? You're thinking ahead. You're not denying certain things. I'm not going to come up with crazy scenarios and worry about them, but things that are inevitable, you know, what if this happens to my house or this happens to my job? How would I handle that? This is the key, from the soul's perspective. And ask your guides to show you things you might not even be thinking of now. Is there anything I need to have in place right now that I might not know about? What? I need a will? You know, that kind of thing. I don't know. Things that we might not think about. So I think it's just very interesting to notice the difference between worry and being practical, but then bringing in the soul's perspective. We've never talked about this, and somebody brought it up after that Q&A podcast, and they said, what is that what if drill you talked about? So I hope you find that helpful. All righty. Let's see. We have 10 minutes till we've gone through 2 hours. I just had an interesting insight in meditation this past month. It's a little lighthearted thing I wanted to share with you. You know, when you pay attention to spirit, you find more and more moments of connection, magical moments that aren't magic at all. It's just showing the connection that exists, moments of wonder. And I wondered, when a magical moment occurs, why can't we repeat that at will? Why can't we just make the magical moments happen? Why don't we get our signs all the time? Then they wouldn't be magical, right? But they happen when they're very meaningful and when there's learning to be had from it. So my guys showed me the other day, they said, pull a card. And they showed me exactly what card I was going to pull. And it has happened in the past. It happened again. I pulled exactly the card from a tarot deck that they said I was going to pull. And you just sit back and say, this is amazing. They really are here. They really do know what's going on. But then I realized the difference is I have never once sat and said, I'm going to pull the Fool card, or I'm going to pull the Emperor card. It doesn't work that way. Every time the magic happens, it's put there from the higher levels. I just suddenly had that insight. It's how the spirit world shows us we're connected, and that these wondrous moments of connection come from the higher level. So the point I'm trying to make is, don't force the magic to happen. So many people say, why don't I hear from my son or my daughter every day? Because the magic happens when you need to get that validation that the spirit world exists. If we could do it at will all the time, what's the point of even playing these games? I hope that makes sense to you. The bottom line is, trust that the magic does happen because the greater reality is real. Ask the spirit world to bring on the miracles. I literally say, bring on the miracles, and they happen when the timing is just right, but we can't force it to happen. All right. Oh, but speaking of a beautiful moment, one of the members of this community, his name is Oliver. He lives in the United Kingdom, sent me a beautiful miracle he had and gave me permission to share it with all of you because we just love these things. He said, my mother passed last Sunday, June 19th, 66 years young. I'm one of 3 boys. We're not a religious family, but are Jewish and would go to synagogue with my mom when we were growing up. Today, my younger brother attended the family synagogue so he could say the mourner's prayer for Mom's soul. It's called the Kaddish. No one knew my brother was attending today, as we had not been there in years. On arrival, the synagogue warden saw that my brother didn't have a prayer book with him. So he went over to the other side of the prayer hall, took one randomly off the shelf from hundreds of prayer books. My brother opened this prayer book to find it had been donated by my mother in 1998 to honor his bar mitzvah. You can't make that stuff up. Oh my gosh. Of all the hundreds and hundreds of prayer books, goosebumps, right? In that synagogue, my brother got the only one my mother donated for his bar mitzvah while he was there to say his prayer for her soul. The rabbi and the rest of the congregation were in utter shock. Yay, Mom. Yeah, I guess it kind of goes hand in hand, the guys are saying, with what I was just talking about. If you'd known it was there and you say, which book is it? And you try to make it happen, it loses that magic, right? They know what they're doing. Let's just trust spirit. So I'm going to take 2 more questions, and I want to end with a story about another one of our community that I told you I would talk about in the email I sent out. 2 more questions, Bev. I hope you all have had as much fun as we have this evening. I can see Bev and Lynette, and they're sitting there clapping and laughing and celebrating with me. I can feel all of you, and I thank you so much.
Okay, Dina asks, how do I know if I have some blockages to my, spiritual awareness or moving on? How do I fix this?
Sanaya just said you all have blockages. It comes with the body. It comes with being human. We take them on as we interact with other humans, especially humans who don't realize their soul. We hurt each other. Brenda, my guide across the veil and our friend, said we're all walking wounded, and we are. So we all have them. And that's why I always advocate regular sessions with energy workers, Robin here, craniosacral therapist, all kinds of Reiki healers. I can't name all the different modalities. I've tried so many over the years. Just have fun. Ask for referrals to really reputable healers. Don't be obsessive about it. Just set an intention. Notice something in you that comes up all the time, like fear of something. And then set that intention. Ask your guides to guide you to a healer who will clear that within you. And then give it some time and see how that plays out. So I used to never go more than once. I used to go monthly to a wonderful healer. When I was pretty gunked up, I haven't been to a healer in months and months and months now. I just don't feel I need it anymore. But you know your own self when you react out of alignment with peace and kindness. Sometimes we get really snitty all the time, right? Or judgmental. There are some blockages there. So find yourself a healer, and definitely a daily meditative practice and clearing your own chakras regularly. You don't need healers every day for that. You can be your own healer. Ask your angels and guides to help you with that. We're going to leave it with that, Bev. That was perfect. I want to just talk here. Many of you have heard me talk about my wonderful friend, Karen Crawford. She has done many of the beautiful drawings that I use when I need to explain a certain concept. She shared with me what a difference it makes to live the awakened way, which is what all my teaching is about, how to live the awakened way, to understand you are not only human, but a soul. You're part of one big web connecting all that is, and you find peace and growth and healing through expanded states of consciousness, shifting to that soul's perspective. Well, she's come to live the awakened way as a result of her own efforts and my teaching and other people's teaching over the past couple of years. But in fact, I'm really going to dive into this topic at my September retreat in Boone, North Carolina, much more so than in the last few minutes of this webinar. If you're joining me in September, you'll hear more about this. But she's a runner, and she ran her first long distance race since she started learning from me. She said, what a difference it made. It filled her heart with gratitude for this beautiful life. And I thought, how could this spiritual path help with running a race? It didn't help her run faster, but she saw such a difference in herself. And I hope as you hear the examples I'm going to share with you now, you'll not only recognize that these types of actions in yourself, but perhaps if you don't recognize certain things, you'll start applying it in your own life. But I said, in what way did this teaching help in the race? She said, I set the intention that my main spirit guide would run with me. I've never done that before. She said, this is a part of my new practice of asking for help and really fostering a relationship with my guides. So not just in a race, but in everything we do, they really are with you all the time. Get a relationship with them. And then the biggest thing, and there were multiple examples of this, she truly saw the other racers for the first time at the soul level. She's making eye contact with people, feeling the joy in their heart. Whereas in the past, for her, it was all about what's my time going to be today, worrying about how she was feeling. Very insular, very inside, very separate and cut off from each other versus, hey, here we are, a bunch of souls out here for the experience of seeing what our bodies are capable of, right? She says, I'm not sure how many hands I slapped or fists I bumped, but it was a lot. And each contact was a boost. So much love. It renewed my faith in humanity. We were all connected and respectful and loving to each other. Well, guys, you have to radiate that to see it in others, right? She said, I completely forgot about all the turmoil in the world and just hit that sweet spot with thousands of people today, loving each other so fully with no expectations, just enjoying each other's company and a common goal. Now, see, who changed? Was everybody in that race changed, or was it her? She changed from the inside out, and that's what she saw in each other, because she's seeing the souls. You know, there were hundreds of people out there who were just like she used to be. Yet since she made the shift to living the awakened way, all she saw was what she was radiating. And you can see that moment by moment in your life now, no matter what you're doing. This life starts at the starting life and the physical life ends at the finish line. It's not a race. It really is about the journey. There's so much more to it. But she said, the growth I've experienced over the past 2 years has been dramatic. This race happened to show me the sharp contrast as I clearly remembered the way I was versus the way I am now experiencing the world. So much gratitude and love, she said. So this is the point, right? That's what this community here, right now, in the Monthly Connection is all about, right? Just remembering at the human level what our souls already know. It's that nudge that I talked about earlier, that the woman in the UK just knew there was more after her father passed. She knew she had to start reading and watching videos and learning and meditating. And your soul knows that, or you wouldn't be here right now. So I know that we all might have a little trouble getting to sleep tonight because you're probably feeling that high energy. I know a lot of you are grieving and a lot of us are going through challenges, but this was a break to remember who we are. This awareness is available to you all the time. So as you step back into your roles after this beautiful community field of love that we sat in tonight, know that you take this with you and you can access it anytime. All right, so thank you. Your soul thanks you. Spirit thanks us for holding the light higher for those who aren't yet awake. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Bev and Lynette. And I hope to see you back here next month and on my podcast. Have a great month. Good night.